All right, welcome to the first episode of From the Bench. This is our way of adding value to anyone's career. Hopefully this brings thought-provoking conversations, discussions. Just to give you a background on kind of what we will do is this is just our opinion, and it's just our conversation. We'll bring on some guests later on in the show, but we're excited to get this started, kicking it off. My name is Brian Rosario. I'm the assistant coach at Pepperdine University at the moment. And I want to toss it around to my co-host. Let's start with Jesse.
Hey, how is everybody doing today? Hope you're well, you're staying safe. Jesse Clark, assistant out here in San Diego, beautiful Point Loma. And really appreciate you guys taking some time to listen to what we think are a lot of important times that we have to talk about, as well as our past experiences and this group here, a lot of good knowledge and exciting things to talk about moving forward. So looking forward to sharing our thoughts with all of you.
Aloha, everybody. Gavin Peterson here from the University of Utah. Hope everybody is doing well during these crazy, unprecedented times. But like B-Rose said, we're here to try to help anybody who is willing and able to learn from our past experiences, some of the things that we've done, some of the things that we've learned along the way. I just finished my 20th season being part of a women's basketball Division I program. I'm currently now the associate head coach here at the University of Utah, and I'm looking forward and excited to work with these bunch of guys who I've been privileged and blessed to know from an early point in my career, and that's some of the benefits and the perks to this job, is developing meaningful relationships through the years, and my relationship with these guys is genuine, and I love every second of it and can't wait to see them in person.
Hello, everybody. Tony Perotti, longtime college coach, 19 years. Now currently working as a consultant, amongst other things, for women's basketball. Also coaching an AAU team here in upstate New York. So, again, known these guys a long time, had a lot of business through the years. And also wanted to just remind everybody that there's never been an opinion I wasn't afraid to voice. And you'll get a bunch of them here on this show. And we look forward to sharing everything with you as we battle through these strange times.
Well, and that's why Tony is on the show, because of the opinion side of things. And we are down one member of the bench. Justin Skanson's not with us today. He's got some other endeavors that he's at, but he's a longtime high school, college coach now with Just Play. So let's just get started. Gentlemen, so obviously the pandemic's going around. I think everyone's dealing with the coronavirus, COVID-19, and things are obviously halted as life as we know it. What's going on with your guys' programs or life or states?
We've been fortunate here, just the timing of things. We were actually on spring break, and I think it gave the university a chance to really sort of come up with a nice game plan. And our team has been able to kind of transition back home pretty seamlessly into classes. And so it's been a real comfort. We've had bi-weekly meetings with our athletic department. AD has been really candid on where we're at, and it's allowed us to feel a high level of comfort. We interact with our players, they're feeling a high level of comfort. I think that's the best thing, we can offer as a university to our student athletes and us as coaches as well, that they've offered us. It's just, all right, we're not feeling panicked. We're going to kind of just take the information as it comes and really be proactive and straightforward. The president's holding town halls on Zoom like every other week or once a week with either the families and the students or the staff. And so that's been really, really good. So that part of it's been a high level of comfort for us. And I think we've been able to translate that to our team as well as to our recruits. So that's been a real positive for how things are going with us here at Point Loma.
Yeah, here at Utah, very similar to Jesse's circumstance, where people were already out on spring break. So that's been good for us. We've been able to keep those kids with their families. We did have a few hurdles with some international kids, but that's been taken care of. And now it's just basically us staying in contact with them. A lot of these kids, they're getting their information from whether it's Twitter or some other social media aspect, which is not always true. And at the end of the day, remember, they're 18 to 22-year-olds, and we've got to do our part to kind of, ease their anxiety, not knowing what the future holds and whatnot. So we've been in constant communication with them. I think our leadership here at the University of Utah from the top down has been great. We've done athletic department staff meetings, over 250 people via Zoom every Tuesdays. My boss, Lynn Roberts, has been in contact with us, usually Zoom calls 3 times a week at least, staying on top of recruiting, staying top of our personnel that we already have, making sure everybody's okay. And then the main thing is making sure these kids finish strong academically. It's hard because a lot of the academic support has moved to online platforms. And knowing me, I would have a rough time doing so. So just being able to check in on those kids, our academic support team is phenomenal. So that's the number one thing we're making sure of is the finishing strong component. And then next step will be, okay, what do we do now with workouts, those type of things. And, the web, the internet has a bunch of different things, a lot of different resources. So that's probably the least of our worries at this point.
Well, I think on the side for me personally, not being affiliated right now with a college program, I think the things that we've been working on with our club kids at this point is we've stayed engaged as well. I think we've had some Zoom team meetings. We've helped the younger players in the program, the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, learn how to get better and do some conditioning workouts, some agility workouts. Some of our older players in the program have shared some basketball workouts, just to give them something to look forward to every day, as far as just not putting the game down and not allowing the lethargy that can creep in when you're just sitting at home and can't really do much. So I think on that point of view, I'm not sure how many other programs are doing that. I'm assuming they are, but I will say, Terrence Florence, the gentleman that runs the program here at the New York Havoc, has done a great job with keeping us as coaches and the players engaged in trying to improve and get better. It's a great time to look back and say, okay, what can I get better at individually, and how to keep myself in shape and get better. And I know that's one of the things that's been important for our club kids. And then on my consulting side, it's just basically the same thing. Like, okay, what are some things that, we maybe as a team didn't do well this year? Or what are some things that some teams did to us that gave us problems? Or how can we get better at those issues? And how can we fix those things or improve? And, to add to that, this might be a great time to do one-on-one conversations with your players if you're a head coach. Not necessarily, basketball stuff, but just life stuff. Like, how are you doing? How's your family doing? How are you, starting to build relationships, because again, coaches leave, things happen, and retention of kids is huge. So these are great opportunities, I think, to really build, a lot on what you can do with your team. That doesn't necessarily always have to be basketball because you don't have a gym.
Well, and I think it's interesting. I mean, like, everything's going online for the players. But we, when COVID obviously hit the States, we were just finishing up with our championship, so we were one of the lucky ones in terms of our team and our conference to finish. And it's been a weird transition to quote unquote the off season. Right. And because it's still the semester for our players and still it's the semester in terms of us doing business, a lot has gone online, and the transition, I think, is a little off. Now for coaches, there's so many professional development options now online that have gone virtually, whether it's, X's and O's or running programs or things like that. And to, I think, Tony's point, this is the opportunity. I mean, we would have all just been getting back from New Orleans, right? Like we would have all been a little juiced with new ideas and just things that we want to try. And we would have allowed time away from our team so that they can flush some things out. Now how, like, what are your thoughts on like the programming that you've seen? Like, is this something that will continue over time, or is this a filler to just this moment?
I think that's an interesting point because, it's funny, you see so much of it. You brought up the point where, usually we've had a little bit of a break from our kids, but because of all this transition, we've probably been in their business even more than we normally would, but albeit in a different way. And to Tony's point, I don't know, maybe we see on a positive spin, we see maybe some more meaningful relationships. And all of us have chatted over the last few weeks about how important that is. And that's why we're doing this show and all that kind of stuff, but even with our own team. So I love what Tony said about that a second ago, and I don't know if it's going to, I have this big thing with it's a lot of theory that's going on out there, right? Like all these different web things and these X's and O's and learning this way and there's a lot of theory going out there. I think where we're really going to see the elite people come out and a lot of the people that, we know, and why the group of us have been in this business so long is taking the theory that we've learned from everybody and then how do we apply that to our thing. I think that's going to be what's going to win the day here with all this stuff that's going on around here.
Yeah.
Right. I think having access to a lot of those variety, men's basketball, virtual clinics coming in from overseas, those are all great. And it is up to us or each individual to kind of see what sticks, what can stick, what you can take, because it is a lot of information. And I'm thankful for those opportunities. A lot of times we go to the WBCA convention and, I always come back with a few, nuggets here and there. But at the same time, I've never been to a men's Final Four. So I don't know what goes on there and their sharing of ideas. So I was impressed with some of the willingness to share from a lot of, whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, professional overseas. So those are great things. But it kind of circles back to what kind of Tony mentioned. We do, as, coaches need to be cautious about kind of diving into just one thing. There are so many things going on. And at the end of the day, you're being looked upon from your team, your current players, your incoming recruits. There's a lot of uncertainty. So make sure you can block off some time for professional development. But if you're spending 6 hours a day and then calling kids every other day, I think you kind of got it backwards. Yeah, you kind of got to schedule out your day, prioritize certain things. And I love the fact that that professional development piece is out there, but that is taking a back seat to what's relevant to the University of Utah women's basketball program and our current players and incoming recruits.
Yeah, Brian, to go back to what you talked about as far as what's on the web right now and all that, and I think some of that is filler. I think people, want to share, which is great, like we're doing today, and I think there's a lot of conversation out there about, this is good or that's good or, but I think at the same time, when you're ingesting all of that, you've got to look for a few things. You've got to first be able to self-identify and say, okay, who am I? What am I doing? How are we doing this as a program? Like, what's important? All of those pieces before you start picking and pulling from different places that may not be you. It's one thing to listen and agree with things or whatever, but if they're not within your personality or who you are, the first people that'll know that you're full of it are your players, because you're going to be somebody that they're not used to or not know. And then the second part of that is you've got to figure out what's the value of that as well as the relevance. So within my self-identity and all the stuff that's out there, what's valuable and what's relevant to me, to the program, to how we do things, to what's relevant to how our players see what we do, or how our administration or how the public or how everybody sees what we do. So it's easy to collect information. To figure out what's valuable, what's relevant is probably more important than what is, than what's out there. Like Gavin said, we can ingest 6, 7, 8 hours a day of information from everywhere. But how many of those things end up in a folder that sits in a box that you never look in again in your life? I think it's important to understand yourself and what you're doing so that you ingest the things that will have value and will actually help you improve or your team improve as you go forward.
So
it's so funny because sorry, real quick, Brad. We all have that. I know when Tony said that, we all started chuckling because we all have that moving box that's got like 20 years worth of notes that we took at the Nike clinic, when we were 3 years in, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, some of that stuff might be relevant still. There might be pieces that are really
for sure.
that help shape you. But ultimately, as you evolve as a coach and as you evolve as a human being, some of those things aren't going to be as important. Having 45 baseline out of bounds plays isn't that important when you've got 12 kids on your team that hate each other. So some of those things aren't valuable at the time. So I mean, finding that piece and understanding it, I think, is bigger than everything. And understanding you and how you relate to everybody is bigger than all of it.
Well, and I think that's a good transition to bring in our guest. So let's take a break really quick, and we will come back with Rachel. Hey, everybody. Before we bring on Rachel, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to watch our first episode. We are very excited to get this thing going. But please press the subscribe button. We will be dropping a special episode on Tuesday, and then our normal drops on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, and 10 a.m. Hawaiian. All right, back to our show. See ya. All right, we're back. We are pleased to welcome Rachel Galligan, who is a longtime friend of ours. And she is the founder and executive CEO, whatever you want to call yourself, right, Rachel, of GoGlobal Recruiting. So welcome to the show. How are you doing with all the coronavirus and the pandemic, and how's it hit you?
Man, I mean, that's a lot to talk about. I think I'm probably similar to everybody else, kind of taking it in stride and kind of seeing what is going to come from this whole thing. I think at first I was a little bit skeptical, trying to figure out the level of seriousness with this, and then it got to a point where we realized, all right, you're going to be stuck at home for a while, and where do you want to be? So luckily, I happen to be in a beautiful state of Denver where I can hike and I can still be outside and social distance the way I need to. But in terms of the basketball world and March Madness and everything that I am involved with, it's been sad. It's been very emotional, I think, for a lot of people. And I think weighing the impact of how this spring has drastically changed to how we're used to living our lives is a lot at times. I mean, I can probably speak for a lot of us about March Madness being canceled and missing the Final Four, an opportunity to get together with people that you care about so much and great friends. And just that opportunity in itself was really hard on me, because that's a chance for me to really get together with a lot of people I care about. And not to mention the impact it has on the student athletes and the coaches. And then, you just look at our society as a whole, and then you kind of step back and you think, well, how is this going to impact my work? How is this going to impact everything I do on a professional level, especially during the spring and summertime, which for me is extremely important. So, but I think it's important to stay positive. I think there's a lot of personal growth that we can have through this entire process. I think there's an opportunity to slow down a little bit and kind of take a rest, reflect on things that are important to us in life, spend time with some loved ones. And, I'm doing a few things myself that I probably wouldn't do had I not been quarantined, kind of to my house. We can get into that later, which is neat. I just want to continue to stay positive. I want to continue to meet with the people that are important to me. I want to continue to work and push the envelope as much as I can every day.
Yeah. And what are you seeing with the, overseas? Obviously it hit the global, right? Like it really halted life, not just in a segment or an area of the world, but the entire world. In terms of, recruiting and on the international front, your conversations with those recruits, how are they handling it? Obviously with Europe being hit pretty hard, are you finding that a lot of the same things are happening that you're going through?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of started with me talking to my network over in Italy. I have some good friends over there and some players that I know that were kind of just, I had a lot of questions at first. I wanted to know how were they handling it? What were things like over in Italy and in Spain in particular? How was that being handled? But then it really evolved into, once they started shutting school down and seasons were canceled, I had a wave of players here that had to get back to Europe. And so that was a challenge within itself, being able to help them understand what was going on. And some of them got back, some of them are still here with extended family, kind of just riding this out, having difficulties getting back to certain countries. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is the recruiting piece. So you have what would be the equivalent of the 2020 class that still some of them are making decisions as to where they're going to attend school next year. And they're not able to make the official visits they were thinking they were going to make. So you've got players, and that's happening domestically too, but you've got players from different countries who are really banking on that official visit to feel comfortable with their college decision. So that has a lot of them, a little bit concerned and worried and kind of, how do I make this decision when I've never even visited the campus, let alone been in the United States? So trying to help them with that, assist them with that, making really good decisions for themselves. But then I think you have to ask the question, how long does this go on? And do we get into August where we're talking about players coming back from Europe for the fall semester? Obviously my mind has to be 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road. And I've spent the last few weeks really preparing for all of that, but there's still so many unknowns with this. Even for me on a personal level, the Olympics were postponed. So it's probably realistic to think that the FIBA European Championships that I go to every summer to really build my database, good chance those are going to be postponed. I mean, realistically. So having to retool my mind and my business and, all right, how am I going to build this database for this next generation of players so the college coaches can recruit them? It's just changed everything.
Yeah. And we often talk about like the trickle down, right? But like, is this manifesting upward? Like what are you hearing with the WNBA, whether it's the draft and camps and a lot of what will happen with the rosters as well, with players being, overseas and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is the majority of them, most of them are back. Very few WNBA players, at least current ones, are there. You have a very select few that are even remaining in Europe, just from a professional level those leagues aren't going on. So most of them were able to make it back safely and have been quarantined. So that's a positive. I do think that, the WNBA, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they came out with a statement late last week or early this week. I don't even know what day it is, let's be honest, that the training camp and the season would be postponed. Not a surprise to anybody, but they're still having the draft, which will be on the 17th. And that's exciting, that's great, but I don't think we're looking at a start of training camp until at least when the NBA season resumes. So right. Maybe mid-June, best case scenario. So we're still having the draft. I think that's kind of what everybody in the WNBA world is focusing on is, hey, like, let's just pipe this virtual draft up and kind of see what happens with that. But I've got a lot of questions with that. I'm questioning why we didn't push that back. Unless there's some sort of agreement or communication between the NCAA and the league in terms of eligibility for those who declared early. Like a Kennedy Carter decided she's going to enter the WNBA draft. Well, she's going to forgo her senior year at Texas A&M. Well, like, what if there is no WNBA season? Can she return to Texas A&M? That's to be, discussed too. So I've heard that there are discussion with that, but there's been nothing official.
Yeah. What would you do? If wear the two hats, right? You're in charge of the NCAA, but you're also in charge of the WNBA. Like where would you see the most benefit if there isn't a WNBA season?
I think, if there's no WNBA season, you have to have some type of, we talk about waivers, some sort of bylaw or some sort of agreement between the two that, technically, yeah, she has an agent or these players have declared early, but they should be able to get that final year of eligibility back and return to the universities. And I would find it completely shocking that is not already on the table, just hasn't been announced.
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of end with one last question before we kind of toss it around the horn a little bit. So you talked a little bit about, you went through things personally, but then also there as a business, but like, this is a moment, right? Where, we either have created a new routines for ourselves or whatnot, but how's this going to change you? How's it going to change, your business model? How's it going to change you personally in the sense of, how you function? Open us up a little bit on what's underneath, this whole thing as we come out of it for you.
I would be lying to say that this has been easy on me. I've had moments where it really, really has challenged me, and I've had to really kind of look in the mirror and dig deep and kind of reshift my mindset. It's testing me in a way that I don't think I've personally ever been tested before. I mean, not just from a quarantine perspective or a fear standpoint, it's just living in the unknown and living in the present and I'm such a planner. I had all these plans to go do this, to go do that, to grow it this way, to grow it that way. And I'm sitting here going, well, everything that I do is based on spring and summer events, women's basketball in one way or another. And everything I do is really a giant question mark right now. So when you look at that seems really scary, but then I step back and I'm realizing that it's growing me in a way that I would have never imagined. Just being creative, it's pulling at a creative side of me that I didn't have before. It doesn't mean that basketball ends forever. It will resume. Coaches still need to recruit. Teams still need to be built. Players still need to be recruited. So how do we identify them? I call myself that bridge of, players to coaches, and I'm constantly trying to connect the dots with that. All right, well then how do we identify them? How do we get in contact with them? How do we get the most recent film to get to the coaches so they can recruit? So as I really dug deep, I realized I can do this. And it's making me a lot more patient. It's making me work harder in a different way that I didn't realize. But what it's also doing is I'm a very social person and I love to travel. I mean, I'm on a plane all the time. I'm going somewhere, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And this has me grounded. And I think on a personal level, it's making me a little crazy. I'm thankful that there's a workout gym in my place that I'm at right now, just so I can kind of get a good workout in. But not being able to be around my friends and human connection has really probably impacted me the most. But I'm thankful for what I do have, and I'm thankful for the work and the creativity that I do have. And, honestly, Rosetta Stone is offering 3 months of free lessons. So I'm doing things like expanding my Spanish speaking ability because that's important for my business. So I'm getting involved in things, and I have a little bit of time with stuff that I didn't really necessarily have before, or maybe I did, but I wasn't thinking in that way. So, I'm embracing it a lot more this week. And obviously Zoom has been a fantastic tool, which has helped me a ton too. So
it sounds like a lot, Rachel, that you're going through, where I think all of us, all the us guys have all been friends for so long. And I think that social piece that you talk about, and this has become a piece for us, a once a week gathering that we've had as friends, and it's been huge. So I can totally relate to that. Talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned, we were talking earlier before you came on about how we spend time with sort of the being inundated with the information, professionally, say X's and O's wise, or player development wise, or what have you. You mentioned being a bridge in your role in the business. And I'm sure that as you spend time on social media or listening to people chat or what have you, that there's a lot of theory in what you're doing, that whether it's competition in what you're doing or just a lot of information being thrown around. How are you, and you talked about being really self-reflective, maybe talk a little bit about how that process has allowed you to say, okay, how can I differentiate myself from the noise a little bit that is sort of talking about what I do, but this is really what I do?
I've kind of had to step away from social media a little bit, to be honest, especially Twitter. I use that as such a professional tool in some ways, but honestly, there's not a ton to be talked about because of the sports that aren't actually taking place. So, I get on there. I'm obviously very involved with it. I have a huge network on there that I rely on heavily, but at the same time, I felt like kind of taking a step back and using this time to reflect on, okay, it's great to see everybody getting creative and the different conversations and the different opinions and the different, there's a lot out there. There's a lot. And it became really noisy for me. So I felt like, or if I can take a step back, and nobody knows this space as well as I do, in my opinion, from a former professional player, as a college coach who is now doing this, I feel a ton of confidence in that. And so stepping back and utilizing these tools like Zoom, we talked about House Party, other things that have been so pivotal and huge and crucial. Really diving into those more, doing a lot of these face-to-face types of conversations with players over in Europe. I've actually got one after we're done with this awesome show today. Just kind of talking with them and really just taking it day by day. I can't overwhelm my mind so much that I get overwhelmed with, all right, am I doing the right things? Because I don't think this is uncharted territory. This whole thing is unprecedented. So is there a right or a wrong on how to handle it, the right moves to be making? I don't know. I don't know who to make that call is, but I know the right moves for Go Global. I know the right moves to help these kids right now, helping educate them on the schools they're looking at, helping them make sound decisions, connecting them with the schools that need a point guard or need somebody in that certain position is all I'm focused on. And that's it. Beyond that, obviously the media part of it, that type of stuff, the journalism aspect hasn't changed a ton. I'm still having my podcast. I'm still having coaches on. We're talking about the draft. So that part of it, there's still things to talk about. There's still hype to be had in women's basketball. It's just not the way we thought it was going to be.
Right. I love that you're living in that confidence too, Gavin. Sorry, I love that you're living in that confidence of knowing what you know, and like I'm living in that, and I think that's that speaks volumes and really theme right into what we're about here with our program. So I love what you said there. Go ahead, Gav. Sorry.
No worries, Jess. Rachel, with everything from a recruiting standpoint basically turned on its head. Speak to us a little bit more about maybe some of the concerns, the anxiety, the pressure that maybe these recruits are having to deal with, especially with the official visit being such a crucial part of the decision-making process. I know we at the University of Utah, we love the fact that if we can get you on campus, we're close to getting you in a Utah uniform.
Sure.
Now that's taken away. We've had to get a little creative. We have to do a little bit outside of the box thinking. But at the end of the day, all it does is it trickles down to still an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, maybe a 20-year-old. If they're international, they're citizens of the U.S. Either way, a big part of the has been taken away. So if you could, would you share a little bit of what you're maybe hearing, what you're dealing with on a personal level with these kids to kind of maybe help clear their decision-making and kind of help ease some concerns?
Yeah, first I got to credit the coaches who are still really committed to this whole international thing, because I have heard so many stories of, walking around campus, with a laptop, giving these virtual tours and showing them every single inch of their campus and their dorms. And that's a huge commitment. You're really taking time to help this young lady and her family understand what she's getting herself into, but it has had a tremendous impact on players. Considering coming to the States. I've seen it a lot of ways. I have a couple who have signed and are committed to come over, but they're kind of sitting here questioning, is this a good time to be leaving my family and coming over to the States? So a lot of times, I'm fielding those types of questions. I can't give them the answer. I can't make that decision for them, but I can just listen to them. I can talk to them about what we're seeing over here, what the climate is like over here. That this is going to pass. It's just a matter of time, those types of things. So you do have some fears. You do have some young women who just feel a little bit more hesitant to leave their families. And I think that is, that's a good thing. I think that's a fair concern. What I think it's going to do is it will weed out a few of those players on the fringe who might have already been a little bit skeptical about coming to America. And like, they've got the decision of, well, I could like go pro here, or I could go to America. And maybe they're not fully committed to it, and say they did come over here, and we all know what's going to happen a few months in or even a year in. They're going to be upset, and they're going to decide to go back home, and here we are. So that's not a black and white scenario ever. That's not something I can ever gauge fully. But from the mentality of kind of what's happening is, if there's someone who's really committed to this, I've got a few girls I'm still talking to that they're like, we're coming, and we're going to make the best out of this, and we're going to make the right decision, and I'm going to work under the circumstances, and I can't wait to get to campus in August. And I feel like, all right, she really knows she's committed to this. This is a dream of hers. She is intrinsically driven to come to America to play at the Division I level. And that's not in everybody, so that is kind of in some ways a positive to me, because I'm constantly trying to gauge that level of commitment. How bad do you really, really want this? Because this is going to be one of the most difficult things you ever do in your life, leaving your family and coming over across the country, or across the world. So, that's really the biggest thing I've been working with, is just kind of the fears and questions that they have, and obviously helping the coaches connect with them, and help with the concerns that they might say, hey, what does Susie need to know? And I can help them and say, hey, make sure you show her the training facility in depth, those types of things.
Gotcha.
Well, Rachel, I think that's one of the tough things, right? Like we are all in the relational business, and we are not able to right now, and we just have to find different platforms to do so, and to do that. So we just want to thank you for being our first guest on our show. How do you want people to reach out to you? How do you want to be connected? How do people how can they stay in touch with you?
People can find me on Twitter. That's usually the easiest way, even though I said I'm not on it. Let's be honest, I'm still on it. My Twitter handle is RachGall, RACHGALL, and I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being on. Until next time, we will see you from the bench. So long.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel.